What's going on, guys? It's Joe Farewell, and today we're going to dive into the wide world of rocking a low power variable optic, or an LPVO, and just some of the considerations that you need to be aware of when you set this up and get ready to use it. Now, when it comes to setting up a low power variable optic, or even picking one out, there's a couple of things that I want you to be aware of. And today we're gonna go over some of those major points that we wanna have locked in before we actually take this to the range. Now, the first thing we're gonna talk about is the quality of the optic itself. Now, there are quite a few options out there that are good quality, budget options, but you do get what you pay for. So the higher quality of optic that you get, what I'm using here is a Vortex Razor Gen 3, it's a 1:10 optic. The higher quality that you get, the better it's going to perform, the better the quality of the glass is, and the easier it's going to be to get into that eye box typically. Now, what is an eye box? The eye box is where your eyeball is required to be positioned behind the optic in order to have a full field of view. If you get too close, you're going to see what's called tunneling, where it looks like you're looking through a tunnel and there's a lot of shadows around the sides. If you get too far away, you're gonna see the same thing. If you get off to one side or the other, you're gonna see shadowing on one side of the optic or the other. And all of those things are things that we wanna avoid. So how do we get this set up in a proper way? Well, the first thing that you wanna do is set the optic up, set the rifle up in whatever orientation that you want. So wherever the buttstock is, I like to have this not all the way out and not all the way in. Typically right about here, somewhere in that ballpark, to where when I bring the rifle up, it's in a comfortable position on my shoulder, and I've got a good arm position up here as well. And then we want to mount the optic in such a way that regardless of the magnification we have on here, it's going to be a clear sight picture. So the first thing that you want to do, set the rifle up. The second thing is we want to mount the optic. Typically, I like to start out at least as an index point of having the rear of the optic in line with the back of my charging handle. That's a good place to start. Now, is it going to be perfect every time? No. You need to make sure we're adjusting it effectively for your eye position and where you need it. So when I bring this up, the way that I test this is I will close my eyes, I'll rotate this all the way up to 10 power, and I'll put my rifle exactly where I want it to have, where I want to have it on my shoulder, and then I'll open my eyeball. And my goal is without making any head adjustments, when I happen to move my head forward or backwards, I want to make sure that I have a clear sight picture through there with no shadowing and no tunnel vision. So once I get the proper setup as far as where that scope needs to be, then we lock it down into the mount, make sure the mount is locked down onto the gun so that it's not going to move. From there, it becomes a challenge to make sure we're doing it consistently the same way every time. Every time I present this rifle, I want my cheek to come in the same spot on the stock. I want the stock to come in the same spot on my shoulder, and I want to make sure it's locked in so I don't have to make adjustments when it really counts, like when we're on the clock for competition or when you're using this for hunting or self-defense. Make sure that when it's set up, you've done the reps on this, the dry fire reps, the live fire reps, to make sure that every time we present that rifle, we've got a clear sight picture and we don't need to adjust our head. So step one, make sure that we got good glass. Step two, make sure we have it mounted properly so that we have a good clear eye box. Step three, make sure that we're doing the mounting of the rifle consistently. We got a good cheek weld every single time. And now the fourth step is how we actually apply the use of this LPVO and actually use what it's designed to do, which is give you a good close range option as well as the ability to reach farther out. All right, guys, the biggest benefit of having an LPVO is it allows you to engage close range targets on typically a 1 power. Now, there's other options out there. Some of them are 1.5, 1.25 power, but I like to have a true 1 power optic. So rocking the 1:10, I have a true 1 power, so I'm able to engage a close range target almost as quickly as a red dot. Now, there's maybe a little bit of speed difference there just because it's a longer tube, it's more weight, it's a little bit more difficult to get perfect eye box behind it. With enough practice, there's almost zero difference. So working a close range target is simple, and most of the time I'm gonna leave my scope on 1 power. The only time I'm gonna turn it up is when I need a little bit more precision for a longer range target. So even for like a headshot at 10, 15, 20, 25, even 30 yards, I'm still pretty much gonna exclusively leave it on 1 power. And when I have those farther targets, we have a target at about 200 yards right now, and that's where I'm gonna bump it up a little bit, and I may move that to 1.5 to 3 power to 5 power, whatever I need for that target. So let's go ahead and run a quick little drill here just to demonstrate kind of the advantages of having an LPVO and what we can use it for. So I'm gonna start off with a close target, move over to a barricade, and take the farther target while I adjust this on the fly. Stand by. So you can hear that we've got 2 quick shots on the up close target. We transitioned over to the farther target. I just quickly rotated my optic here to 3 power so I could see that out there at about 200 yards. And another option that you can also see as I have this here is having a offset red dot where I don't have to make the adjustment on my optic. So I could actually use my offset red dot, snap that up for the close range target, and then immediately move over to here and transition without having to make any adjustments there. So it's just a different setup. I use that for my competition stuff. It's also a good option for hunting. We've talked about using offset red dots in other videos. I'm sure you can find the information for that somewhere around here. But that's just one quick demonstration of the advantages of using an LPVO. Now, if you are in the market for an LPVO, there's a couple things that you should keep in mind. First thing that you want to check is what the requirements are for your distances. So if you're gonna run a 1 to 4 power and you wanna shoot out to 800 yards, you might want a little bit of extra magnification. If you're just shooting within 200 yards, you may not need a 1 to 10 and you'd be better suited with a 1 to 6. So keep that in mind. Having a ton of extra magnification can also add some dollars onto the price tag, so especially on the higher end optics. So keep that in mind as far as what your application is going to be. The second thing you want to keep in mind is it first focal plane or second focal plane? And this is, we're not going to get too deep into this because it is a kind of an interesting subject, but it does get into the weeds a little bit. Second focal plane essentially means that the reticle is going to stay the same size no matter what the magnification is. So if you're going to be shooting long distance, you have to keep that in mind, that when we zero and we understand what our holdovers are in that reticle, it is only going to apply when you're on maximum magnification. Now with a first focal plane optic, that changes because as you adjust the magnification, the size of the reticle shrinks and grows based off of the magnification that you're using. With that ability, you're going to have the exact same holdovers if you're on 3 power or 4 power or 7 power as you would on 10 power using this optic. So it's just something to keep in mind that if you're gonna run a 1 to 6 second focal plane and you put it on 3 power, your holdovers are not going to line up the same as they would as if you had it on 6 power or if you were running a first focal plane optic. Pros and cons to both of those. It's up to you to decide what you want to run. If you have questions on that, you can absolutely drop a comment down below. Happy to help you out. Hit me up personally. This is what I do. I love to do it. One other little accessory that you might want to have is a throw lever. And that is a little lever that will attach to the ring that adjusts your magnification, which just gives you a little bit of leverage over that so you can quick throw one way or the other. I don't run one on this rifle simply because I have an offset red dot. It kind of interferes with that, and I don't really need to worry about a fast throw one way or the other, because like this drill, if I was running this in a competition, I would simply start with my offset red dot and then adjust over to my preset magnification without having to make an adjustment. So there's some considerations for you guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, drop a like, drop a comment, make sure you follow along for some more videos we got coming out to you, and I'll see you guys on the range.